Studying American history uncovers contradictions, many of which center around the subject of race. Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal, yet enslaved people. The Constitution, a document revered the world over for its defense of representative democracy, nevertheless originally regarded enslaved African Americans as 3/5 of a person. As the U.S. fought fascism abroad, it engaged in segregation and Jim Crow from within. Trying to reconcile these paradoxes has led to civil wars and social revolutions. In this episode of From the Vault, we shine a light on an item in our collections that highlights this contradiction, an 1853 registry from Vigo County that was described then as the Registry of Negroes and Mulattoes. Before the Civil War, Indiana's politics concerning African Americans reflected the period's prejudices and conflicts. Even though the state had banned the practice of slavery in its 1816 Constitution and subsequently upheld that view in an 1820 Indiana Supreme Court case, many political leaders and citizens still believed that African Americans were inferior to whites and that the laws should reflect that. In 1831, the Indiana General Assembly passed a law that required all African American settlers to the state to pay local authorities a $500 bond as a declaration of good citizenship and penalties for any employer who hired those who failed to meet these requirements. Despite strong opposition from religious communities like the Quakers, the law was never repealed and never overturned by the Indiana Supreme Court. When a constitutional convention was called in 1850, African American citizenship became a key issue. While some advocated voting rights, most notably Delegate and future Vice President Schuyler Colfax, the convention went in the opposite direction. This culminated in Article 13, one of the most controversial aspects of the 1851 Indiana Constitution. It called for the ban of African American immigration to the state, voided all contracts of African Americans moving into the state, authorized fines for employers of African American immigrant labor, promoted the colonization of African American Hoosiers to Africa, and authorized further legislation to uphold this article of the new state constitution. One of the laws subsequently passed to enforce Article 13 mandated that free African Americans in Indiana needed to prove that they lived in the state before the 1851 Constitution went into effect. The law required that African American men, women, and children should register with the local county clerk's office. Even though this legal requirement languished under largely poor enforcement, as indicated by the vast difference in numbers between African Americans living in a county and those who actually registered, registries were still kept. This is the Vigo County Registry of Negroes and Mulattoes, recorded from 1853 to 1854. It is one of the few surviving registry books from the period that is in the State Archives collection. A digital version is available for researchers on our website. The registry contains 32 names of African American men, women, and children, the date they registered, their ages, a physical description, which at the time meant labeling individuals based upon the complexion of their skin, Negro or mulatto, their place of birth, current residence, and the names of white witnesses who attested to their residency. Many African Americans from Indiana who registered were immigrants from North Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky. In the Vigo County Register, only 9 people were born in the state of Indiana. 5 of the 9 native-born Hoosiers listed included Kinchin, Benjamin, Amanda, William, and Augustus Brooks. They ranged in age from 15 to 3 and were likely the children of John and Lucy Brooks, ages 45 and 35 respectively. 2 of their sons, Kinchin and Benjamin, later enlisted into the 102nd U.S. Colored Infantry of the Union Army during the Civil War, the 1st African American Regiment from Michigan. The parents immigrated to Indiana from North Carolina. Indiana's government required a registry of its native-born, simply because of the color of their skin. According to census records, many registrants were farmers or laborers, but some held other professions. George P. Miller, born in Washington County, Kentucky, was a doctor. Armstead Stewart, originally from Virginia, was a plasterer who assisted in bricklaying and building. Also from Virginia, William Clark worked as a barber. One treated the sick, another raised up buildings, another was a businessman. All were vital parts of their homes, yet seen as less than in the eyes of politicians and other citizens. After the tumultuous years of the Civil War came the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, which banned slavery, codified birthright American citizenship, and extended voting rights to African American men, respectively. These constitutional provisions essentially nullified Article 13 of the Indiana Constitution, which was repealed in 1866 and removed from the Constitution entirely in 1881. Like the history it represents, the Vigo County African American Registry represents both a problematic past and an opportunity for the future. Indiana's past contains many instances of injustice, discrimination, racism, and bigotry. And yet, this record now exists as something people can use for research, especially genealogy. Very few records exist for African Americans in Indiana before the Civil War, so this registry is a powerful tool for many who seek to learn more about their lineage and history. Painful contradictions abound in our past. The point is not to ignore them, but to acknowledge them and build a better society from what we learn. Thanks for watching. Please click like if you enjoyed this video and make sure to subscribe to keep updated on all new videos. Finally, leave a comment or story idea for a future episode. We want to hear from you.